All right, today we're talking with Air Force veteran and military spouse Lacey Langford from the Mill Money and MilMoneyCon show. What, Lacey? Been on the show before. You and I go way back from our USA conference days, so it's good to have you on the show. Anyways, before we get to talking about current events and what you're up to these days, take us back. Tell us what you did in the Air Force.
I was an information manager. I was in for 4 years. So I did a lot of like admin work, oddly, some computer work. I think they were just rolling some job titles together.
Mm-hmm.
But did a lot of mean editing on annual performance reports and had the opportunity to work for NATO when I was on active duty. So admin stuff. But best decision I ever made was to enlist and join the Air Force.
Awesome. Okay. And so getting out of the military, I think your husband continued on with his army career, and so you filled the military spouse role. Um, talk about like were you were you getting an interest in entrepreneurship while you're still in the military community, even though you're out, or where did the entrepreneurial bug come from?
Well, it actually started. My husband I met, he was active duty Air Force at the time. He was enlisted and later took a commission in the Army. But while I was on active duty, started into finance. I knew I wanted a degree, so I was like, I'll start while I'm on active duty, save some money and time. And that's really where it started was I wanted a career in finance. I wanted to be a financial advisor.
Uh,
And then I ended up finishing school after I separated, married my husband on my spring break, and then became a military spouse before I even graduated, and then rolled right into all the difficulties of building my career around his military life. He had very high ops tempo when he was a crew chief after 9/11, and then obviously becoming an infantry officer, went even higher after that.
mhm.
So one day I just got really ticked off. I was volunteering so much. I had a cat card. I was starting like a little business doing coaching, but I was like, you know what? I am just going to do this. I am going to start my own business that's PCS proof, that I have control over my earning ability and my career. And I didn't really understand it all, but I was like, I'm going to give it a go. And I was like, all right, if I want to get coaching clients, I got to have a website so they can find me because we're going to move. They're probably going to move. How am I going to stay connected with people? And then it really just started evolving. I was like, okay, well, how am I going to, I've got a website, but that's not just making people fall in my lap. How am I going to market and sell myself so I can get paying clients? Um, and then it evolved like creating a podcast. But then along the way too, I didn't like charging the military community to help them with money, which is a horrible business model, not getting paid. That's volunteer work. And so one day again, like I got ticked off and was like, I've got to find a way to make a good living at this, but not charge my community. And so I was like, I got to get a third party to pay for this. And so then I started like reaching out to organizations and saying, hey, I want to do this coaching or I want to do this project to help the military community improve their financial life.
Mhm.
Would you financially support me to do this work? And then that, kind of evolved. So I think, I have fallen backwards into entrepreneurship. It wasn't something, even if you told me today how much work I've put into it, I don't know that I would ever start again. But it ended up working out for me, and I'm just really a type of like I'll figure it out person, and if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So that's just led to me not quitting because I've just committed to something else and be like, okay, well, I can't quit now. So
Yeah. The old adage, I'd rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for someone else.
that's
Yeah.
the truth.
PCS proof, man. I like that term. I haven't heard that one before. PCS
Yeah.
proof. Yeah. The military spouse is in a unique position. And it's a really vast, untapped resource that exists out there because you have a lot of military spouses that have a lot of experience, a lot of education, a lot of skills to offer, but companies stay away from them because they're going to move. But you recently, especially with COVID, we've got all these virtual. Everything's gone virtual. It's really opened up a lot of doors for a lot of military spouses to jump into really good jobs. And if you're virtual, theoretically, those jobs should be PCS proof also. So there's quite a few people that have even started up VA companies. Marketing military spouses is good VAs and executive assistants and everything. So it's really cool to see. But um, I remember I was talking to one gal she's over in Japan, I think, and they opened up a clerk job at the gas station on base, and like military spouses with like master's degrees were applying for this clerk job at the gas station because they couldn't work out in town. Like if you're not in the military, that's one of the things you don't realize. A lot of the SOFA agreements and stuff, your military spouse can be stationed over there with you and live with you on base or off base, but they can't go get a job. They can't get a job in a local community and take it away from one of the one of the citizens of that country. So a lot of places heavily restrict military spouses from getting jobs overseas. So puts them in an interesting position. Um, so you started working a lot with military families, and military financial and military money. Talk about some when you finally got going in your coaching, and then you started into podcasting.
Well, it's hard business being a financial coach because you can
Uh,
imagine finance impacts the most intimate areas of people's lives. And unfortunately, people use money for good and for bad and to hurt people, to help people. And it's a kind of an emotional roller coaster. And I think I'm a really empathetic person. So often doing a lot of coaching in that capacity, especially people maybe that are in crisis, not so much like, how do I invest my money? But the people like, just really struggling. That was difficult for me emotionally to, do calls like that because I was doing them virtually.
mhm.
And then jump off a call and be present for my family. It's like, oh, I just came out of a horrible, situation where I'm, trying to help these people that they're actually in the horrible situation, not me, but just kind of trying to do my best for other people. And it was also limited by one-on-one, and creating a podcast was a great way to, one, like, market my services, let people know that I'm competent, also get let them get to know me because it is an intimate relationship, hiring somebody to help you with their money. And people want to get to know you, to trust you enough to tell you very private information. And that was a way for people to get to know me, also a way to reach more people and go beyond that one-in-one. And then, after starting it, seeing like, okay, well, wait a minute, like maybe I can make money at this too, by through sponsorship, or maybe, selling my course, or, products or something like that. So it wasn't anything that I planned on doing this long. I knew I really wanted to do it. I like having conversations with people. So it fit well, I think, with my personality, and being able to reach more people. So, but looking back, I'm like, another great decision I made was to start a podcast.
Awesome. All right, back talk with Air Force veteran and military spouse Lacey Langford, uh, MilMo, and the MilMoneyCon. Um, so you started the podcast. You're doing financial coaching, focusing in the military space, um, and then you decided to start a conference. So with all the same things. So talk a little bit about what it was like trying to put your initial conference together the first time. I think it was actually your first one, and then where you are now.
Well, again, it wasn't something that I set out to do. I kind of fell into it. I mean, I was intentional about it, but having a podcast, I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of amazing people. I do a lot of mentorship, I do a lot of coaching. So I'm talking to people constantly and having conversations on and offline, and started to see the, offline discussions. People would say to me, well, hey, I'm going to start an app to help the military community with money because nobody's doing it, it's really needed. And I'm like, you know what? It is really needed, but there's actually a lot of people doing that. You just didn't know about them. Or
Mm-hmm.
people will come to me and say, the Department of Defense should have this resource for service members and their family. I'm like, well, they actually do. You just didn't know it was out there.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of people that come to me that want to start a career in finance after they leave the military, or military spouses want to move into that field. So, doing a lot of mentorship. When I came off of active duty, I didn't understand the playing field in financial services, all the different positions you could play, the kind of money you could make, what a day in the life would look like. And so, I really feel passionately about, if somebody wants to come into financial services that has a military background, like, we should help each other do that. And I just kind of landed on I should get everybody together. Like I shouldn't keep complaining about it. Like, hey, like we should all talk. Why don't I put on an event and we could all get together and help each other, build our careers or improve it? Mentorship. People that are getting ready to retire, helping a service member that's just coming into the career field after they leave the military and pass on all that knowledge. I don't think, service members should have to start all over. If this is the career path you want after service, then we can help. Like there's a million things that are people need help with in the veteran space, in the active duty space, but this is my wheelhouse, finance, so I can help here. Like, there's homelessness, like all this stuff, and I'm like, if I work on moving the needle here, it could have a huge impact. And then there's other people that are working in their sphere, and so that's what I was like, I'll just do it. And I just kind of took the risk and was like, I'll give it a try and put it out there. My first year was in 2022 in North Carolina, and April of 2023, I just finished my third year. And then in 2024, I'm sorry, let me say that again. And I was like, got my dates all wrong. In 2024, I just had my third one in Denver, and then
Yeah.
2025 in May it will be in San Antonio, Texas. So it's growing, and I'm excited about it. And most excited about all those things are really happening. Like people are coming together, having conversations, helping each other, taking research and connecting with people that are in practice to see how, all the research they've done, how it can actually truly move the needle and help people. And then connecting people with organizations that want to hire military spouses and veterans in the financial services space, because entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Not everybody wants to start their own coaching business. Not everybody wants to start their own financial planning practice, but we can help each other, mentor through our careers and our businesses so that you don't have to take the long, hard road. We can be a foothold to help you up and over the wall in this area. So that's kind of how it started, how it's going, and hopefully continue in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine like what was the learning curve, learning how to start a conference.
It was steep. It still is steep. I feel like the more I go further into entrepreneurship, the I feel like the less I know. I feel like I've learned so much and come such a long way, but there are so many things that I don't know. Luckily, I had strong mentorship. I have friends that have events themselves and have learned my lessons in that, trying to do it all on my own and thinking I don't need any help.
Hmm.
No, the first few calls were people that I knew that were in this business to say like, what are the first steps I should take, and got really clear about not trying not to lose money. And I did learn some hard lessons about the hotel industry, food and beverage, bringing an event to a different city that has their own way of doing business, and dealing with customer service a lot more than what I was already doing with MilMo in the event industry. So and then trying to keep costs low and doing a lot of those things on my own, and then now moving towards like, okay, I gotta get help and move away from some of the tasks that I don't need to be doing.
Hmm. You know, um, before we hit the record button, you and I were talking about back when we were both starting our businesses, and I had contemplated going nonprofit, and I'm like, I just I had a really great mentor up at Fort Leavenworth, a retired Army officer who started the foundation there at CGSC, and I learned so much about the nonprofit world from him that it made me realize that I don't want to start a nonprofit. And um, I have a lot of friends that run nonprofits; they're great, but can you talk about why you went the for-profit route versus the nonprofit route? And I'm totally with you on this because we were talking earlier. I said, yeah, I quickly realized that in the nonprofit world, a lot because a lot of military veterans, military spouses, are like, oh, I want to start a nonprofit and help veterans. That's the best way to go, right? Like, the problem is you quickly get out of actually helping people like you wanted to help them, and now you're in the business of raising money. And of course, raising money could easily be called begging for money. It kind of feels that way sometimes. And here's another very ugly truth about nonprofits: it's probably more competitive in the nonprofit world than it is in the for-profit world because all these other veteran nonprofits are competing for the same dollars that you are. And man, I've seen veteran organizations undercut each other and trying to weasel in on funds that these guys were trying to get. And it's interesting. I've seen it all happen. So, anyways, do you mind talking a little bit about why, like, I'm going to go the for-profit route as opposed to the nonprofit route?
Well, in the very beginning, I'd like to think it was because I was so educated on the differences between the two, but it wasn't. I was like, I thought like nonprofit was like you make no money. Even as the owner, I would assume if I'm saying all of my money is going towards this organization, I wouldn't get paid. So it was definitely ignorance. Little did I know that people, that run nonprofits make, in most cases, a lot more money than me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but then over time, starting to see other people, and it really is, I mean, in business, no matter what, you're in sales. Like, so if you're in a nonprofit, you're in sales. Like, you do have to bring in the money, but you are totally right. Like, that's where you spend all your time. So if you think you're going to be running a nonprofit, unless you hire somebody to do that, their sole job is to bring in the money. You're going to get further and further away. But I think that's too like the CEO of a business. Like, you're getting further and further away from the the making of everything.
Yeah.
But for me, um, one of the reasons why I went into entrepreneurship was like I wanted to have control of my career. And so I also too wanted to build this for my family, whether it's my children working in my business, whether that's me, my siblings working in my business or selling it to my children or to a sibling. I come from a very large military family. So um, to me, there was over time starting to see like, okay, no, I don't want to be a nonprofit because I do want to have some flexibility. And the addition to that too is that you have to have a board if you have a nonprofit. So there's a lot of other people telling you how to change your vision, or hopefully everybody will support your vision, but that's really probably not the point of a board, for everybody to have the same opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other component is like, you have a lot of other people saying how it's going to be run. And I know what I'm trying to do. And I don't think if you have a for profit or nonprofit doesn't determine the goodness you're trying to do in the world. You could be a for profit business trying to do amazing things and help other people, and that's the way I see it. Like I'm going to help the military community and veterans no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even if I make no money at it, and I did that before. I did a lot of volunteer work. I still do a lot of volunteer work and mentoring. So I just think that um, it's also too a mantra like, hey, you're a service member, you should start a nonprofit. Like you're a veteran, you're a military spouse, this is the route you should take. But I think there's a lot of great examples of successful veterans that are for profit and still doing amazing things in the world.
Yeah. Plus, you have some very strict IRS stipulations that you have to comply with up front, even to get approved. You guys get your determination letter, and there's a whole, there's a
It's
whole,
more expensive.
yeah, there's a whole big responsibility, and you know, lot, it costs money, a lot more money, and everything else. And you mentioned board members, like I know a few people who've started nonprofits and put the wrong people on their board, and the board, once the nonprofit started making a lot of money, they kicked the guy out. Like it was his baby. Like he started it, and his board of directors said, "You're out of here, man," and he couldn't do anything about it. So
That turns my stomach. I
yeah,
would I would be devastated, like the passion and all the work that I've put into my business for like somebody to take control of that.
yeah,
That would be devastating.
yeah. I mean, and the one most people know about, which is not it's a for-profit company, was Steve Jobs. Apple was
Oh,
his
really?
baby. He started it from
That's
scratch. The
yeah.
board of directors canned him. The board of directors fired him from Apple. And then, so he was gone for like 10 years from Apple, and he went off and started Pixar Studios and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And like 10 years later, a different board brought him back. And that's when the whole iPhone, iTunes thing came back after he came back. So, yeah, be careful about who you put on your board of directors if you're starting a nonprofit because,
I won't name names, but there are some very public instances within the veteran community that that's happened as well. And I'm not saying that, for profit or nonprofits are bad, like that's your
sure.
choice or whatever. But for me, looking, going back, I wish I would have done a lot more research to defend my decision better, because I am very happy that I am for profit and the way I'm doing business. But I feel like I should have had more knowledge to make that decision and make it a little bit more clear versus just not knowing any better. So if like you're on the fence, I would say talk to a lot of people that have started a nonprofit before you make that commitment because it is a huge financial commitment. But the same thing, before you start a business, if it's for profit, you should talk to a lot of, for profit or nonprofit to see which way you want to go.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've dealt with this also, like whether you're for profit or nonprofit. When you're in the veteran space, there's kind of this unwritten rule about you ain't supposed to be making money off of veterans. Like, and I totally get that. I'm like, I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to do something where I would take advantage of any veteran or the veteran community. So it's very, very touchy. As far as like, oh, you're going to charge veterans money for what you're doing and that kind of thing. So I grappled with that. I'm like, well, I don't. And then eventually the whole sponsorship model came along, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's okay. It's good, but
Right.
and you can talk about that a little bit yourself with like you're counseling veterans and or active duty military people, and you're a coach for them. You're like, well, how do I get paid? I mean, these people are coming to me for financial advice, and I mean, I'd like to get paid something, but you got to be really careful with that. It's kind of tough.
Absolutely. And I think it's just so in our community, based off of being on active duty and to Guard Reserve have some of this too, but it's like everything's paid for. You
Hmm.
know, you need a free Christmas tree, you can get one on base or on post. Like they're given out. You need a backpack for your kids for school with school supplies, given out to the people in need. So there's a lot of if you need a loan, that's available. You can get free financial information and counseling on most every major military installation. And if you're not close to one, you can do it virtually with Military One Source. And so that is really hard, especially in the being a financial coach, charging the military community. Why should they pay me when they can get it for free? Now, there's also the area of a lot of people don't value what they don't pay for. So that's the other part is like if people were utilizing all the free services to help them financially, and let's talk about military transition, like getting out, like, education, that type of stuff. Why aren't these being used? Like, why does anybody have any financial issues? So there's other nuances to it, but um, I do think that people don't value what they don't pay for. And that's why I ended up kind of changing my model. At this point, I don't charge the military community to help them with money. So I will do all that for free. I have, a set amount in my schedule that I will do free financial coaching. I do charge the military community for business coaching because I feel like this is something that I've really built this skill set the hard way.
Yeah,
I wish it was the easy way. That's what I always say. Like, people should do a lot more informational interviews. I wish I would have done that more.
yeah,
But so it's hard, when you want to help somebody but they're not able to pay you. So you do have to find another way. And that is sponsorship, or for a long time I would just do side hustles. Like, okay, I just know in my heart I'm not going to charge for this, so it's not a good business model. I need to do freelance writing to make money. Like, I can do all the free financial coaching, but I'm going to get paid as a writer. Talking about finance, and the way I see it is kind of group coaching via writing, just like the podcast is group coaching via audio. So to me, it was like, this is what I'm going to do no matter what. How am I going to find a way to get paid for it? That's the way that I work. And so I feel like a lot of people can do that. You can help the military community in different ways, no, whatever area that is. If that's, with homelessness, if that's, with employment, whatever it is, you just have to figure out a way within that industry to make it work.
yeah. Let's talk about MilMoneyCon. So you wrapped up 2024 already. You mentioned you got one in 2025 in San Antonio, USAA headquarters there. Uh, who should go to MilMoneyCon?
Financial professionals that are either starting out. So if you're on active duty and you know that you maybe want to be a financial planner or a paraplanner, if you want to be an educator in finance, it's great for you. So you can start talking with people, networking, and again, understanding the playing field. Because if you talk to somebody that does financial advising and it doesn't sound like that's a fun day, then you might not be interested in that, but you might be interested in being a financial coach or counselor or paraplanner. And then it's also for people that are established in their careers. There are educators there. There are people in media like me that have a podcast that do financial coaching. There are people from the government, people in corporate finance. It's really all encompassing because I want everybody part of the conversation because rising tides lift all ships. Us coming together, not only can we get mentorship, but also our earning ability. I feel like people that want to be in the financial space should make good money. They should make a living as a financial professional. They shouldn't have to volunteer all the time. If they want to do that, that's great. But like you should also be able to make money in some capacity. And so the other part is that is connecting them with organizations that understand the military lifestyle and want to employ them or work with them. So that's, military spouses can often only work preschool hours, 3 times a week, 3 hours when their kids are in preschool
Hmm.
and they want to be a financial professional, but being able to connect them with a company that's willing to work around preschool hours instead of part-time or full-time are, important part of uniting our community and working in the un and underemployment area of financial services for military spouses. So it's really that, like getting mentorship and improving our craft, learning about new ways to practice in finance, whether that's learning more about the thrift savings plan or that's learning more about investing or 401ks. So there's sessions like that. So it really is people that are interested in the field of financial services or people that are in there and maybe getting ready to retire and pass the torch to a younger generation.
Awesome. Um, Talk about some of the speakers that you've had at MilMoneyCon or who's going to be there in 2025.
Ooh, actually, speakers submissions are out right now, so that's all getting ready to get decided. So none of the speakers have been selected for 2025 yet,
Mhm.
but I've had any just some examples. Andy Cohen, who is the director of financial readiness for um, the Department of Defense, the FinRed office, they have spoken. The VA has started a new office called the Office of Financial Health, FinVet, and Dr. Eric Elbegen has spoken talking about the importance of finance in the veteran space and all of the impacts that it has. So that has been amazing. People within the community, like Daniel Kopp, Air Force veteran himself, went from active duty to building his own financial planning practice, military spouses that are in the blogging space. There's been some sessions about sales and marketing. I'm real big about people wrapping their mind around that in business. So there's a wide variety.
Awesome. Excuse me. Um, well, we are getting close to the end of our time, Lacey. So I wanted to give you the last word. How do we find out more information about what you're doing with MilMo and Mil MoneyCon?
Yes, so the brand MilMo, helping the military community make, save, and invest money wisely, is at milmo.co. You can follow me on social media everywhere there. It's MilMo is the handle. And then for MilMoneyCon, it's milmoneycon.com. Both of those, you can sign up for the newsletter to get updates on what I'm doing with the conference, or if you want to learn about, investing and making money in the military community, you can follow the newsletter on MilMo as well. And then I'm also on LinkedIn.
Awesome. As in regards to entrepreneurship, you're talking to somebody that's getting out, got out recently, doesn't like the job, want to start their own business, want to get into entrepreneurship. What kind of advice comes to mind?
I would say go for it. Get comfortable with the risk. Like that's where you really have to wrap your mind around that if you're okay with, whatever the job is that, you're going to have to make money at if it doesn't work or it's not financially successful right away, but you don't want to not seek out opportunity because you're scared of the risk. So there has to be some type of balance there, but don't get stuck in overthinking it and worrying about what other people think. You know your work ethic and what you're capable of, and it's not going to be easy, and nobody advocates for somebody to take the hard road. So it might be hard, but if you know that you're committed to doing it, like go for it. Don't look back, make it work.
Awesome. All right, Lacey. Well, thanks for sharing your veteran and military spouse entrepreneur success story and look forward to seeing your future success.
Thank you so much for having me back.
All right. You bet, Lacey. These two veterans are Oscar Mike.